Hi everyone, I'm Jade from Psych Safety, and I wanted to make a really short video this morning talking about the connection between psychological safety and coaching. So I've got three main points I want to make on this topic. There's a lot more I could say, but I'll start with these three. So the first thing is that if we are coaching well, we have to be fostering psychological safety in that relationship. If let's say we're coaching a person, if they don't feel safe to speak honestly and openly with us, if they feel perhaps that we might laugh at them or we might in some way embarrass them or even punish them for being honest about their mistakes that they've made, for asking questions, for sharing things that are concerning them, or for being creative and sharing new ideas, then that coaching can't be very effective. So if we want to create an effective coaching space, if we want to create an effective coaching relationship, we have to do some work to foster psychological safety in that space. So that's the first way. The second thing I want to say though is that coaching also helps us to foster psychological safety. So what I mean by that is if we're doing broader work, let's say as leaders, we're doing broader work in our teams, in our organizations to foster psychological safety, coaching is a great way to help us to do that. On one level, this is because it's the skills that we practice in coaching. So the ability to ask questions well, the ability to remain curious rather than judgmental, the practice of allowing for space and allowing for someone to be silent and giving them time to process before they speak, before they share their thoughts. All of this is great for fostering psychological safety, and this practice of coaching will help us when we are then trying to foster psychological safety, perhaps in the wider team, in the wider organisation. It's also great from the perspective that coaching helps us to flatten power gradients. If we're a leader who's always coming in with a telling approach, if we're always telling people what to do, if we're always saying, I'm up here, I know what I'm doing, and I'm in charge, I'm going to tell you what to do, then we are we're increasing the power gradient between us and others. We know that when there's a very steep power gradient between those with the most power in the team and those with the least power, it's very difficult to foster psychological safety. The people with the least power will not feel so safe to speak up. So coaching is a great way to flatten power gradients, because coaching is all about saying, I trust that you have the ideas. I trust that you have the capability to come up with your own solutions, and I'm interested in that. So there's a great way in which coaching can help us to foster greater psychological safety. But the third point I want to make is that as leaders, if we are doing the sometimes very difficult, very challenging work of fostering psychological safety, then receiving some coaching ourselves can be a great way to help us to do that. Often trying to foster psychological safety means we have to rethink and reflect on and relearn some of the behaviours that we might have seen leaders exhibit in the past, and think about how we want to do things differently if we want to foster psychological safety in our teams and in our organisations. Coaching often can give us a space for doing that. Plus, if we're successful, or if we have some degree in creating a space where people feel safer to share their concerns with us, to question our ideas, maybe to share some difficult feedback with us, that can sometimes be really hard to hear. And there can be a tendency, if we've not expected this, and maybe if we don't have adequate support for this, to find it a bit overwhelming, to find it too much to work with, and therefore perhaps consciously or unconsciously to shut down that communication. So we don't want that to happen. We want to be able to hear the things that are hard to hear, respond well, respond in a way which invites people to continue sharing and continue being open with us. But what coaching can do is, perhaps if we're getting some coaching ourselves, it can give us a container for processing some of it. It can give us a container for reflecting on some of those difficult things, and thinking really intentionally about how we move forward with them. So that's the third way that I think coaching and psychological safety are natural partners and work very well together. I hope that was useful.